Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltiziak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we break down the Detroit Lions' 34-10 victory over the Cleveland Browns. We'll discuss how the offensive line held up against the Browns' defense, how special teams played a role, and give some major credit to the Detroit Lions' defense in this game. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
Hey, everyone. This is Lomas Brown, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is Coach Jerry Angers, a former Michigan High School Coach of the Year. He's also named Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He's the scouting and training director for Bull Rush Sports. Speaking of Rush, Coach, thanks for rushing back after the game to join us.
Hey, nothing like 5 hour, 4.5 hour drives. Goes real smooth when the Lions win, so it was all good.
That it does, and I can't wait to hear about some of those in-person experiences you had. Yeah. Joining both of us to hear about that is the Sports Writer of the Year for Community Newspaper Holdings Incorporated. That is James Cook, the senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle. James, good to have you here on a Victory Sunday night.
Always good to be here on a Victory Sunday night.
Folks, as we get started, we want to let you know the show is brought to you by our friends at Roaster Jack Coffee Company in Traverse City. They've been roasting incredible beans since 1999. Perfect for your morning cup or fueling the whole crew. Order fresh at roasterjack.com, and if you use the code LIONS, you'll get 20% off your order. Roaster Jack, brew great coffee, and go Lions. Okay, as we do, overall reaction in just a sentence or two. James, let's start with you.
Joe Flacco is 40 and can now no longer say that he's never lost to the Lions because he was 3-0 coming into this game in his career against Detroit. And Europe wins the Ryder Cup, and now they get the Cleveland Browns next week.
I like both of those, and you hang around long enough that those things can happen, I guess. Coach, you were there. What's your overall reaction? Couple sentences.
Very gritty, determined, three-phase game win.
All right. I'm going to say the Lions did what they were supposed to do, and that doesn't always happen. Ask the Chargers today about being 3-0 and playing an 0-3 team and what happened there. I will say job well done. And finally, Jim Schwartz was not carried off the field. And I appreciate that one because if you remember, when he was a defensive coordinator for another team, he did get carried off the field after a win. So, all right. Well, a reminder, folks, tell your friends and family about this show. You can find us on all major streaming platforms. Video version is on YouTube. Social media-wise, we'd love it if you would follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Okay, let's start with talking about what we liked. I'm going to go with one we talked about as a key to the game. That was a turnover battle, 3-1. That can be a difference maker in any game, and it was a difference maker in this game. The Lions won that 3-1. Coach, taking care of the ball, that's like rule number one in a game. What were some of the things that made this the way it was?
Well, I think the turnover, but like you said, the turnover battle, we talked about it. We had to have win the turnover battle, and I talked about last podcast about the pregame, and that was a hidden yardage chart, and we won the hidden yardage chart, the special teams. I mean, that was huge. The punts, the returns, the grittiness, the coverage on kickoffs. I mean, that whole part of the special teams was just a big part, and it made it easier on the offense, and definitely made it easier on the defense.
Yeah, and again, 2 interceptions, one by Kerby Joseph, the other by DJ Reed. You had the strip sack by Hutch with the fumble recovery by Trevor Nowaski. James, they're all great plays. What can you say about them? And you had to at least be, turnover neutral in a game, but 3-1 really slanted this and put it in a way that Cleveland was going to have a real hard time overcoming.
Yeah, especially the Lions turned, I think, Till's first two turnovers into 10 points. So that really kind of swung things back in their favor after Cleveland went down there and scored right away on their first drive. That unfortunately that's been the habit this season
Mhm.
uh, for Detroit opponents. But then after that, pretty much didn't put together long drives, long consistent drives after that. So, and then the Lions offense just did the rest. The last three games, the Lions offense is averaging 41.3 points, 404 yards, has 65 first downs, and 16 touchdowns. That's a pretty impressive three-game stretch, especially considering they've played some pretty solid teams in that stretch.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm gonna add to the turnover thing later because I think that DJ Reed interception, there's multiple layers to that. One is he like dove over Jerry Judy to make the catch and then had the wherewithal to get up and run it another 35 yards. And yards were not easy. I know you just gave some stats there, James, on how well the Lions did, but they earned every single yard this game against that Cleveland Browns defense. And so that was a really big play by Reader there. And so that speaks to the whole defense, though, you guys. And I know you've got some stats here too, James, that the Lions did great on defense. They held things in check. Where'd you want to start on the defense, James?
Well, I mean, they did some different things. I mean, in the third quarter, when Cleveland got back down into the red zone, Kelvin Shepard brought all three linebackers
Yeah.
on one play. One was a little delayed, kind of, but all three linebackers ended up coming and they forced an incompletion. Browns took a field goal after that to make it 20-10, but them getting a touchdown there would have been some pretty serious momentum for them. So I think that's just another thing. Everybody early in the season was talking about the coordinators and the change in the coordinators, and all of us were like, just just let it be. Just let them go at it and do their thing before you question whether losing both coordinators is going to just you know put this team into a tailspin or something like that. I mean, everybody was just jumping off a cliff. Calvin Shepard's been pretty darn good this season. John Morton, same thing.
Well, like Dan Miller said at the end of the season, coordinators are important, but players play the games, and you got the players on the field. They held the Cleveland Browns to 3 for 14 on third down, coach. And we know Aidan Hutchinson was a big part of that, a great team effort. But Hutch did get one of the game balls, 4 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 for a loss, 4 quarterback hits, and a forced fumble. What were you liking up front on this defense or just in general on the defense?
Well, I think that they just compressed the pocket, but it was just awesome. I think they call, I see Trevor and those guys coming in doing this, which is, I think that it's called their hammer. And, there's, Trevor or Barnes or whoever's on the end opposite of Hutch, they're pushing the offensive lineman into the quarterback, and that Hutch is coming on the backside. The interception, could have been Joseph's interception. Trevor pushed the offensive tackle all the way into Flacco's hip pocket, and Flacco couldn't step into the throw. And just watching them do that stuff again. 3 weeks we've been going against guys we had to worry about mobile quarterbacks. Well, then this week they said, well, we're gonna put the dirt on the old guy, and we're just gonna pile that up, and they did just a phenomenal job with it, and I think that kept them, Flacco, from setting his feet because the guy can still spin the ball, man. In person, a couple of those throws he made, 2 or 3 throws, the deep one, and you're just, you get a little scared, but we rose to the occasion every time, whether it was the defensive line or whether the linebackers or the DBs making big plays, and again, 3 turnovers, and it turned out to be 17 total points off 3 turnovers, so which is just a great day.
That it was. And you know what? Joe Flacco didn't always get some help from some of the guys he was throwing to because a couple of those long passes were dropped. And so Flacco does still have that arm and he does have accuracy. So I want to point that out as well with that. But you're right. The Lions defense was where Dan was putting it on. He said it before the game. He goes, defense, this is on you guys to start, because he knew the offense was going to have a formidable opponent in the Browns defense. And the Lions came out and did just that. And I think you saw the game plan go that way. Kerby and Reed with both interceptions, like we said. It helped. It helped when the Lions went 3 and out and they were able to get the ball back like that and not have to, give up more points or spend as much time on the field wearing down, because the time of possession was pretty even in this one. I actually think Cleveland won that by just a couple of minutes. I'll double check that, but I think it was like 28-32 or something like that. But you're right though, James. You did say the Lions gave up a touchdown opening drive. They've done that every game this year. So a little work in progress that needs to happen there. What else did you see from the defense, James, that you liked before we move on to the offensive side? Anything?
The secondary was still aggressive even after the guys left the game with injuries. They played pretty well with the guys that came in. Maddox came in, played a couple series when Kerby was out, and then Kerby came back in. But after both the corners left, Meek moved outside, and then you had Rocky Sin playing the other corner, and they played pretty well. Cleveland doesn't have the greatest weapons at wide receiver, and Tillman left the game at one point too, so they had one less. But Bond looked pretty good for a rookie, and Jerry Jeudy's still a pretty solid pro and has a pretty good rapport with Flacco.
For sure. And actually, I want to give a shout out to Grant Stewart. I think on the 2 Flacco quarterback keepers on the goal line, they ended up scoring, I think, on the 4th down, but Grant Stewart was in there making sure that there wasn't anything happening. He helped slow those plays down. So it was nice seeing him come in and flying in there.
Right. Well, the other thing too is, the other corner came in too. The guy broke his leg last year. Oh my God.
Dorsey.
Thank you. Jeez. Dorsey came in. Meek just did Meek had some great coverages. Reed, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to shout out to Anzalone. He made 2 freaking tip play, that deep ball to the one that from
the tight end,
the tight end
Fannin.
from Bowling Green, Fannin. He made that deep ball. He just ran. He just went with him, swatted it. He had another one across the middle. Anzalone's just one of those guys that's just, they talk about him. The Lions see it, but his coverage is phenomenal. And then I'm going to go with Campbell, man. I'll tell you that dude just takes care of the middle, you guys. It's he is just turning into one great linebacker.
Yes, he is. And there was a big play. Him and Anzalone both got in on the tackle when it was like 3rd and 12, and they gave up like 10.5 or 11 yards, but it was deep enough in Cleveland's territory they didn't dare go for it, and that just forced the out right there. So great examples, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you notice, at points during the game, I was like, is David Njoku even playing in this game? Because his name just never came up. He had 2 catches for 11 yards, I think.
He was chipping.
It's like they weren't even using him. The Lions were taking him out of the gameplay, or the Browns were scheming it that way, or something. Like, he just wasn't even a factor, and he's one of the better tight ends in the NFL.
He was staying in and blocking. He was chipping Hutch. He was chipping Nowaski. He was chipping Barnes. He was blocking a ton. I made a comment of that when in the stands. I says they're using him as a blocker. That's kind of a slap in the face, and they're throwing the ball to the rookie. So so that's why he's
not exactly known for his blocking.
No, it was unbelievable. I was there's probably 7 or 8 plays in a row that within a couple series I watched, and I'm like, they're just keeping him in the block. So, but we're still getting pressure. So I guess they should have put him in a pass route.
Well, I also want to give a shout out to the Lions keeping Judkins in check, because I thought Quinshon Judkins had the chance to be a difference maker in this one. He averaged 6.1 yards a carry against Baltimore, 5.2 against Green Bay. The Lions held him to 3.9 yards, and his longest run was 11. And so that was important, and that's why, an interesting stat here on the way the Lions have played defense. Colton Pouncey brought this up. The Lions, going into this game, were at 58% base defense this year, okay? Last year, they only ran at 38% of the time, and the year before that, 28% of the time, when James was like, it seems like base defense for the Lions is nickel, because it was almost 75% of the time. So, you're seeing a lot more three linebacker sets, which is helping stop that run game. And I don't know what the percentage was today, but keeping that run game limited really helps the rest of the game plan on defense.
Yeah. I mean, Branch was in the box. There was, a bunch of things. Joseph come down the box. They were on motions. They were switching. Joseph would come down the box. Branch would go back. Watching it from there, seeing the whole thing. Of course, I can't just watch a game. I got to analyze everything. And, but they just did some great, and then, when they bring those backers in there, it was just, and I'll tell you, Lopez is a tough dude, guys. I mean, he's another one. I watched him probably, I watched him, a lot of kind of keyed on those guys to see how he's doing. And he's gritty, man. I'll tell you, he's perfect for us. And I'll tell you, Lily, is it Lily? Lily's the guy we picked up in free agency. Right.
Yep.
Lily and
Lacey. Yeah.
Lacey, sorry, Lily. Why was I thinking Lily? Anyways, Lacey. I didn't have my glasses on. But Lacey does a nice job too. He got a ton of reps. So yeah, it was good to see
Yep.
that. And
O'Connor was in there too.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He's steady Eddie on that situation. And and even we'll go back to the freaking holding calls in the start. I'm starting, you guys, and I'm going to bring up the holding calls real quick. I'm starting to think the Lions tell them if they're going to get beat, hold them for a 5-yard penalty and a first down and get back. The one on Branch, he spun back around and Branch just hugged him. And I'm thinking, man, Branch is a better athlete than that. So for some reason, I just, I've been there before coaching where I just say, don't let him beat you. We'll give them the first down, but we're just going to play rock defense, and that's what we do. So, anyways, that's my 2 cents on that.
All right. Well, and we'll get into the penalties a little bit more, and that might be some insight right there, because there were a lot of flags flying today. Let's jump over to the offensive side of the ball. James, what's something you liked over there?
Well, John Morton backed up his talk during the week that, got some attention when he said they haven't seen a running game like ours. The Lions were able to run pretty decently against Cleveland. They didn't run all over them like they did in last week's game, but they averaged 3.8 a carry, 109 yards mostly between Montgomery and Gibbs, of course. But I mean, this is the same defense that held Derrick Henry to 21 yards and Josh Jacobs to 30.
Mm-hmm.
So for Gibbs to get, I think it was 90 yards.
Yep, 91.
That's a pretty good tip of the cap to, they haven't seen a running game like this.
Yeah, and I was happy when Jacob Sailors got that 9-yard run late in the game, because I was like, okay, that means even no matter what, we're going to be over the century mark. And I just kind of wanted to hit that, just to hit that. Coach, would love your analyzation on this part, because I know people are going to wonder about it. Gibbs, 91 yards, Montgomery 12, 6.1 yards a carry, 1.3. Was it situational? Was it circumstance? Was it different? Was it play calls? Why the disparity?
They pounded, they pounded Monty in the middle, and there's a lot of those plays were coming at us by where we're sitting, had, awesome seats, 7th row. And Gibbs got more of those bigger runs on the outside, and he made a couple more of the, more rooms. I mean, it was just like I think the situations when Monty came in there on the ones that Gibbs ran the big play. Here's one I watched. Monty came in. They pulled Monty out, put Gibbs in right away before the play started, and that's the one where Gibbs ran around the right side, going away from the tunnel for a big gain, and then Monty came right back in again. So I think they just said we got to get that speed on the edge, and I think part of it is they continued to pound them and pound them and pound them with those inside runs. Even though they're only getting that 1 yard, Monty just didn't have, he never got going. There was guys in the backfield nonstop in some of those situations. And, that happened. But the other thing, I loved what they did from that. From going from those runs to the deep balls. They threw a ton of deep balls, the most deep balls I think I've seen. I don't remember the Lions throwing that many deep balls, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute. But so I think it just happened last week. Gibbs, didn't care. Monty had all the big yards last week, and it's not like, oh, they're blocking better for Monty. I mean, I heard that in the stands a couple times too, but whatever. Oh, they're blocking better for Gibbs this week than they are Monty. Well, it's what it is. It was the perfect defense called. Maybe there's a key with Monty when he lines up left lines. I don't know. I don't break it down to defend us. And so I think that has something to do with it.
Yeah, and James, I'd agree with Coach. I'm not going to overanalyze these numbers. It's a rotation, and they're going to, it's not necessarily just playing the hot hand.
Mhm.
It's you're rotating guys, and you're maybe looking at the situation, and you're keying player types in and what's on the defense, and you just want to have each guy take their share of the workload and kind of see how it plays out. Do you have any thoughts on the running backs?
Yeah, I mean, well, Monty is your between the tackles guy, and where is the Cleveland Browns defense the strongest? Right up the middle. Their defensive line is really good against the run game. So it didn't really surprise me the disparity in those rushing numbers. And this
Yeah.
is going to happen. Every year this happens, and by the end of the year, their numbers are a little closer than you expect that they would be between Montgomery and Gibbs. So last week it was Montgomery. This week it was more Gibbs. It all evens out in the wash.
Mhm.
There you go. Well, when we talked about the deep shots, those were available or, yeah, made possible because Jared Goff was not sacked. Crazy enough, third game in a row he hasn't been sacked. And we're talking Chicago, Baltimore, and Cleveland. These are some teams with some historically decent defenses. Cleveland, arguably the best defense coming into this game this season, or one of the top two. Now, Goff did get hit 5 times. The Lions got to Flacco and company 9 times for QB hits, not sacks. So some of those deep shots didn't land. Many of them didn't. Goff got hit on some or had to move a little bit, and that affected things. Coach, let's get you starting on this and have James follow up on it. What were you seeing about the deep shots?
Well, there was a guy sitting behind me, and after about the third missed deep shot, he started yelling, "Golf, you're terrible, and we need to get you out." But
What?
yeah, oh God. So, anyways, I turned around and explained to him, and I explained to the guys in front of me because they were saying, "Oh, JMO did this or they did that." We talked about it in the game, in the pregame, and I told you that the seam route in that cover one concept with the outside head, it was where Jackson ate those guys up. Okay, a couple weeks ago or whatever, or
Yeah,
not Jack, but anyways,
Lamar Jackson. Yeah.
yeah. And I said, so that was the other one was the deep out routes, the deeper out routes, or if they were pushing man to look inside and go out. So probably every one of those passes, and JMO had a rough game. He dropped that first down. He missed another one where he kind of got caught up. He was looking inside and the ball was thrown outside. And then, but I want to talk about just because I watched him after those drops, and the next play was a run play, and he was working his tail off to make the block. He had that big, I think it was a first down catch in the fourth quarter after he had just dropped the ball or dropped 2 balls. And
Yep.
he caught the ball and he put it down. He ran back to the huddle. He didn't celebrate. He didn't point first down. He just said like, okay, I finally caught one. Let's go. I gotta be a player. Those deep shots are gonna come. Those are timing routes. And whether Golf was off his spot and threw it too far outside or threw it too far inside, or their heads didn't get around quick enough, or he had to release it sooner. The key is we took those shots and look at our improvement from week 1 to week 2 offensively.
Yeah.
Wait till you see our improvement from week 4 to week 5 in our deep shots. I'm just telling you right now. I loved it. I was happy. I was excited, and I kept going. And again, the guys around me were like, "Oh my God!" Of course, then they took a picture of my shirt and said, "We're going to listen to your podcast." But it was just fun to explain to them. The one, a couple of those guys were like, "Well, I don't really know a whole lot about football. I just figured I'd yell Golf, that was a terrible throw because a couple other people were yelling it. I said, well, you don't need to do it. So anyways, my point is, and we've talked about this week in and week out, that it's not golf. It's not, sometimes it's golf, sometimes it's the receiver, and that stuff will be fixed. And we scored 34 points. Yeah, granted, one was a kickoff return or a punt return, but we scored 34 points against probably, I'm going to say, one of the best defenses in the league.
Oh yeah, I think most people would, and I
Yeah.
like that breakdown and that
Yeah.
explanation. James, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that one of the differences in the offense this year is that they're seeming to target JMO more early in the game. Whereas, before it was like they were setting up shots for him. Now they're manufacturing plays for him, drawing up plays for him early in the game. Not necessarily all deep shots and everything. That we saw that first one was, just a regular crosser. But just getting him the ball early, and making him more of a threat as a possession guy across the middle, those 10-yard routes, all that stuff, instead of just a one-dimensional you run the fly route guy. That's going to pay dividends down the road.
For sure. And after the game, Jared Goff was asked about his targets and passes to JMO, because I think JMO had 2 catches on 8 targets, if I'm not mistaken here.
Hmm.
And Goff said, at first he just was like, yeah, and I'm JMO's even keel. It doesn't worry me or anything like that. I have no problem going back to him. I'm not concerned. And then he was about to move on to the next question. He goes, wait, let's rewind that. Some of those were my fault too.
Hmm. Hmm.
And he, because that's what a leader does. And not just what he does, he's being accurate and honest. He's not going to let the blame go somewhere where it's not. Sometimes the play didn't have time to fully develop, and Goff was throwing the pass, and there really wasn't a lot of separation. And the one JMO did drop, on the corner, it would have been huge going from one shoulder to the other, can be a very difficult thing. Not making excuses, you need to try to come down with some of those things. But at the same time, Jerry Jeudy drops some too. I mean, we saw it on both sides, and they're going to keep taking shots. JMO is still a great deep threat and going to be, and this is going to force teams to have to continue to play deeper, which opens up stuff across the middle and shallow. But I liked how Goff took responsibility there on that as well. And they're not worried on the offensive side of the ball one bit about this.
Nope.
Another thing, you guys, that maybe Jared Goff doesn't get enough credit for, and Dan Campbell brought this up, after that touchdown and after that interception by DJ Reed, got it back to the 5-yard line. The Lions are leading at that point, and it's 10-7, and it's 3rd and goal from the 5-yard line. And Jared Goff checked out of a play. And Campbell said his ability to read that defense is what got us that touchdown. He checked into something different, and that's why we scored. And so you always hear he can't scramble. And we know he's got certain abilities, or might not have certain abilities that other quarterbacks have, like that ultra elusiveness and that scramble ability. By not being a mobile quarterback, he doesn't have some of those things, but there are traits he does have. And we've seen it time and time again. And I think one of his underrated ones is understanding how well he can read a defense, because the more you understand what's coming at you, coach, before it starts to come at you, the more prepared you are. How many times do we see him checking down to second and third options, and he's doing it at lightning speed? So I loved hearing Campbell talk about that and throwing some praise on his quarterback.
Yeah, that was, and I'll tell you, they got to the line of scrimmage pretty quick. I don't know if you guys noticed watching on TV how long they stayed on the line of scrimmage. Of course, it cost us 2 false starts in one drive, but we'll talk about that later. But he was there. It was amazing at how many times he was barking things out on points and 6, and there's in it, and then they would set it up, of course, and they were sending the motions across to see if it was man coverage. But it was that he was dissecting their defense the whole time, because that is a very, very good defense, and he was picking up the things they were doing to make those calls and to make those changes. And I'll tell you that. And again, We're going to talk about your favorite plays later. I'll talk about that
Okay.
because it's
All right. Well,
yeah.
let's hit up special teams then. All
Ooh,
right. Special teams has some major contributions here. Jake Bates hit a 58-yard field goal, just 1 yard short of the team record by Matt Prater. That put the Lions up 20-7 at halftime. It was nice to get those extra 3 points. But a game ball, second game ball, went to Khalif Raymond with the punt return for a touchdown. James, it was nice to see some good positive things out of special teams today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that Bates kick had like at least another 10 yards on it.
mhm.
I think that one would have probably been good from like 70 or so. So just being one short of the team record, that record's not gonna stand for I think much of the rest of the season.
And that
Uh,
ball had like a curve on it. Like it had some English where it went in and came back out. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought at first that he was missing that, and then it just came back, and by the end it wasn't even that close to the upright.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was pretty to see. And then that return by Khalif was just great. And then the thing with running up to the stand, giving the game ball to his wife, kissing his wife, who was there at the game and everything, that was great.
Awesome. Coach, what did you see on special teams that you liked?
Foxy. Oh my God, guys, his punts. It's fun because they drop the ball differently when they kick it. I don't know if people know that or if you've noticed that. And you saw, of course, I'm watching that, and the one that he kicked and it went out at the 5 yard line, I believe, or 4 yard line, three. I don't know. You guys remember that one? As soon as I watched him drop it, and he just he it just seemed his the thud on the ball every time he kicked it, it was going to be a boomer. And I mean the height, the hang time, the 4 point, I'm sure they're shooting for probably 5 seconds hang time, or air time. And then of course the one that he dropped and put to the edge, and you could see that's exactly where they had planned to put it. That because the way the gunners and stuff are running, and just that was the best he's kicked this year. I think I just felt that he was into it, and it was and those when you're taking a team like Cleveland, we go to our first game where we had those long drives that we couldn't score, but you take a team like Cleveland that's offense isn't very good, and when you flip the field, it's a big task for them to try to reflip the field on their offensive side, and they couldn't do it. So that helped with scoring more points on short situations.
Yeah, 5 punts, and all five went inside the 20-yard line. And that's exactly what we talked about, making sure we took care of field position because that didn't happen against Baltimore. But like you just said there, we knew with the Browns' defense or offense there, you wanted to push it back so that they had a long way to go. All right. Well, let's talk about things we didn't like. We'll just talk on these a little bit. I mean, when you win 34-10, I'm just going to say Dan Campbell said this was not good enough. We will have to do better. They left a lot of stuff out there. At the same time, hey, they're going to take the win. They're going to celebrate the win on a short week like that after a big win against Baltimore. But there are things to clean up, and that's a great thing to know that you can win like this and still have room to improve. James already talked on it, the slow opening series, I guess, for both sides of the ball. But we allowed an opening touchdown again, Coach. Where does that come down to, or how does that affect things? Or, is there anything to that, or is it just, is it not a pattern? What are your thoughts on something like that?
The first drive, if you watch NFL games, college games, the first drives, I wonder what the percentage of people scoring on first drives are. Granted, we went 3-and-out on ours.
We did.
They drove their first, but you got scripted plays. You got, they had an extra day to prepare. They had they had the ability to watch the game on Monday night. Those are all things that's what translates into them scoring on that opening drive. They made some great calls. They made some great, their run concept where he was bouncing outside. They were leading 10 up in, and we were attacking the 10. I think it was 10, the lead back. And then, even on the one Hutch came down and hit him, and the rookie bounced it outside for a 10, 12-yard gain. But then they adjusted to it. Then Hutch kind of slow played a little bit more, and that was stopped. Or Derek Barnes came down, or Meek, or Arnold did a great job closing. So I don't, it's if they score on the first 3 drives or 4 drives like we watched a few years ago in Baltimore, then I would be concerned. But it's the NFL and teams, team script plays and they lock them up. And our adjustments after that are huge. So I'm not concerned with that too much.
Yeah, after that first one, we scored 20 points in a row.
Yes.
James, any thoughts on the opening drives? Them, scoring again and us going three and out.
I mean, it's a pattern that you don't like. I don't know. Obviously, hopefully, it doesn't continue.
Mhm.
But I mean, even the guys on the radio or TV caught on to that too. That it was the fourth straight game that the Lions had given up a touchdown on the opening possession. I'm guessing that that's something that they'll fix up. There's like Coach said, the first plays are scripted. The first half of the first quarter usually is pretty much scripted. They know what plays they're going to run. Everything's a little bit more well executed because of that. So once the game gets going, the Lions seem to have the upper hand, or have the last 3 weeks.
All right. Well, another thing we didn't like, at least I don't think anybody liked, is penalties in this game. There were a lot more penalties than were actually accepted. Each team had 6 penalties. Cleveland for 44 yards, the Lions for 35. It seemed like a lot more flags were being thrown than that. Jared Goff did take full responsibility for those 2 false start penalties. He said those were on me. Coach, you talked about how much he's barking around and stuff, trying to change some things. James, what were your thoughts on the penalties here?
I mean, the false starts were not great or anything like that, but Terry and Arnold had 2 holding calls early, which is not great. And then Branch had a hold called on that. I mean, he was covering Fannin that negated that Hutchinson forced fumble. But then Branch came back right on the next play, broke up a pass, made a great play right after that. The one call on Mahogany that really stalled the drive, and they just took a field goal. That I don't know where the penalty was on that play. I saw the replay and I was just like, why was a flag thrown in this play? And then there was at one point you could hear the audio on the field during the game of DJ Reader
Yeah.
yelling at the refs to call it both ways because he had gotten his helmet ripped off.
Yeah, he had no helmet on when he's yelling because he's like, call it both ways, man. And again, you know, there were penalties called both ways, but that was a great example there, James, where he was, you heard the audio and he has no helmet and you're like, well, how did the helmet come off?
Yeah, there was well the one on Gibbs too, where Gibbs got tackled. Collins kind of pushed him down, hit him again, and then Collins freaking kneed him in the head. It was plain as day. And then he acted like he was stepping. He wasn't stepping. He did it on purpose, and he's going to get fined. I guarantee he gets fined. But the point is, yeah, call it both ways. Yeah, and I'm going to go back to the to the Ratledge one. I started screaming, "How can a guard who's next to the center not be lined up correctly?" I
Oh,
mean,
the illegal formation
the
one.
illegal formation on that was on Ratledge, and I'm like, I said a couple other things too, but we won't repeat those. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah, they
whole
called that on Ratledge, but it was
yes,
Sewell lined up too deep,
oh,
is
it was
what it
Sewell.
was.
Okay, all right,
Sewell was, yeah, they called Ratledge because he was uncovered, but it
yeah,
was the penalty really was Sewell was lined up too far back.
I got you. Okay,
Which I've seen that penalty a bunch of times this season, called this year already. The second game I watched in the afternoon, I saw that called too.
yeah,
So that seems to be more of a point of emphasis this year, is not giving those tackles that extra setting up deep in the
it's a chief
behind.
rule. It's a Kansas City chief rule.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the other thing we don't like, injuries. Kerby Joseph got hurt on DJ Reed's return, the interception return, went down while making a block. He was able to come back in the game. DJ Reed, though, did exit the game, as did Terry on Arnold. James, you want to, or Coach, you were there. I know you saw some of this. You want to tell us your thoughts, and then James, I'll have you weigh in.
Well, Reed turned. I mean that was probably, I think it was at 35 or 40. Anyways, I was kind of watching it because the receiver had broke open and he turned and just friggin' as hard as he could go to catch up. And about 5 yards from when the ball was thrown, he frickin' started hopping and grabbed that hammy and fell immediately. I mean, he grabbed the hammy and kind of hopped on one leg until the play was over and was down. And you could tell how much pain he was in. And I've seen this, that track, coaching track, coaching football, and when something like that happens, my only hope is that he's never had that before, so it's more painful than he thought. But man, that was a bad one, guys. And I just, those are and again, I'm not a doctor, but when somebody grabs it the way he grabbed it, it's, you saw I think about the Olympic runner when his dad came out and helped him finish in the years ago. I don't know if you guys remember that, where the guy
Yeah.
tore his hammy and his dad ran out on it and made sure he finished. And that came to my mind immediately when I saw that. Arnold's, I thought it was a shoulder, just because he filled that hole, and he kind of got up and then he kind of went down again. So I don't know, but I think somebody said pec, somebody said shoulder. He was down a while, which is that's the nerve-wracking part. But those are big. Joseph came back. Maddox had a great play. I'm going to give a shout out to Maddox. I think Joseph would have picked that ball, but Maddox come across and just friggin' hammered that receiver. And I was like, all right, okay, we'll be all right without Joseph for one series. But anyways.
Yeah, and the encouraging thing in the post game is Dan made it sound like Terry and Arnold, it might not be super serious. At least that was what he alluded to. And it made it sound like, if it is a hamstring thing with DJ Reed, that, I don't know how much time it will be off, but hopefully it's just a few game stint or a handful of game stint versus something that much longer, James. And I mean, those are your top two defensive backs. I know a lot of people are down on Terry and Arnold right now, but man, you want him in there. You want him available.
Yeah, you totally want him in there for sure. And I guess it was kind of encouraging that you saw DJ Reed post a couple of times on social media after the game, and neither one of them was anything that sounded like he was down about anything. They were pretty optimistic. I mean, they weren't anything about the injuries or the injury or anything, but they were optimistic, positive posts. So that kind of gives a little bit of a good spin, I think, on that. So you've got the Lions are probably got to be looking at the free agent who's out there. You still got Asante Samuel's a free agent out there. If you were really, really desperate, Cam Sutton's still available.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I thought you were going to go a different direction yet. I'm glad you didn't go that direction either. So
Which one was that?
Ski masks.
Oh, no.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's a safety, not a corner.
I know he's a safety. Yeah. No,
I think they learned their lesson on that one.
I think we're good, and we'll see. I would be expecting the Lions to at least sign somebody to their practice squad this week. That's a defensive back. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. Coach, any other thoughts before we move on?
No, long as if we only lose one for a little bit, Amik is a freaking dog. Amik is, I'm telling you guys, every time he lined up at corner, he is so much fun to watch. I guess, and he's never, and we saw him last year against JJ.
Yeah.
We know that, but he is there's just something about him that you just want to hope that it just goes well for him for 10 more years, because he is just he's such a true Lion. So anyways, wasn't real concerned with that. Again, hopefully it's not long-term for either one of those guys.
Yeah, and the Lions have talked about Amik getting more playing time, and it's just because, again, if they're running more base and less nickel, there's less chances for him to be on the field. And you just talked about how great he's been playing. They want the people out there doing that, and so Arnold's got some room to improve, of course. And guys, he's a second-year player. There's a lot of time for the improvement on Arnold. So I'm not stressed out on his struggles. And knowing that you've got Amik there and you've got a veteran, you're like, dude, put him in right now. Let him rotate back and forth or do what you need to do. Obviously, at this point, Meek might be getting a lot of playing time next week and the coming weeks. Want to, again, give a thank you to Roaster Jack Coffee Company for supporting the show. You can order fresh roast-to-order coffee at roasterjack.com, and you save 20% if you use Lions. So put that code in there and get a discount. Okay, turning points, pivotal moments in the game. The DJ Reed interception, that was a big pivotal moment. That was a turning point. We returned it to the 5-yard line. There was 4.5 minutes left in the second quarter. The Lions were up 10-7. That led to the St. Brown touchdown. That put the Lions up 17-7. I thought that was a pivotal moment in the game. James, did you have one you wanted to add?
Yeah, I thought that one was, I think, pretty huge. The interception by Kerby was big. Obviously, that was a miscommunication somewhere by the Browns because there was no receiver within 20 yards.
Yeah.
But, somebody ran the wrong route, or Flacco thought somebody was going to be somewhere different. But that I think kind of turned things around too, and the punt return. I think the punt return was kind of the dagger. Cleveland was kind of hanging around in the game a little bit still at that point, and I think that was when the Lions were just like, "Nope, this game's over."
Mm-hmm.
Coach, how about you? I echo a lot of those same thoughts, James. I really do. Coach, anything you wanted to add on these?
No, I
turning
totally
points?
agree. I totally agree on each one of those. You can go all the specialty. And Dan Campbell said in his press conference too. It sounds like he put it on the special teams and the defense, and knew that the offense would struggle a little bit. Knew that the offense cannot. He does a great job of doing that stuff. Remember last year when he called out Goff and said that the offense, it's your job because we had just signed 7 guys from Walmart to play for us, and or whatever. You know what I'm saying. And it's just,
Yeah.
there's just so many of those quick pivotal, quick changes that changed the game. But the return was huge.
Yeah. I mean, the Lions were up 10-7 when they got the interception, led to a touchdown, and then the Bates 58-yarder. So going from 10-7 to 20-7 was huge going into halftime. But then you've got the punt return early in the fourth quarter that, like James said, and I agree, it felt like game's over at that point. You're not coming back down 17 in the fourth quarter. So, okay. We have not talked ahead of time as to what our play of the game was. I think let's go ahead and start. It might be pretty obvious here, James, but what do you got as the play of the game?
I think it was the play when Hutchinson went down with an injury and then ended up not being hurt.
But yeah. Coach, tell me at the stadium, what was it like?
It was like, I don't even think I've ever heard a stadium go as quiet as it came. And then everybody around me was like going, "Oh my God, Hutch is down." And I think he got hit somewhere that it bothers you.
Well, the wind got knocked out of him. They showed the replay where the guy got a good elbow into him, which was pointed out by the broadcasters that it was a legal move, a legal hit, but it still hurt a lot.
And we were just, everybody was like, I think my jaw had hit the ground and everybody's just watching. And then I think it was Reed gave the thumbs up, and we're like, he gave thumbs up. We were just screaming. But that place it was just like, oh my God. And then he hopped up and the place went crazy. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, Hutch after the game said he had his wind knocked out of him and he was trying to get up so people wouldn't worry about him. And I'm like, wow. So very, very considerate, but not necessary. All right. So, James, I like that take on the play of the game. Coach, how about you? What do you got for play of the game?
You know what? There's so many of them, but the one I enjoyed the most, and you guys are gonna go, "Oh my God, I can't," was when Tesla came in at wideout and Goff motioned Tesla in because everybody thought they were gonna throw a fade to Tesla. I was watching the DBs. It was right where we were sitting. And the DBs were like pointing at Tesla and the safety at every Tesla. And Tesla, they motioned Tesla in, and I think he ran a little in route. And St. Brown ran the little flare and caught it for a touchdown. The play design was It was, and again, Tesla was hardly on the field all game. I can't even remember another time I saw him. And they bring him in. It's a jump ball. Cleveland falls for it, hook, line, and sinker. And as soon as he goes in motion, they slide, and I'm like, touchdown, St. Brown. It was the play design was unbelievable.
Awesome. That's great. The play of the game by a lot of people is the punt return, Khalif Raymond, that kind of ended it for the Lions. I am going with the DJ Reed interception because the way he dove over Jerry Jeudy to make that interception, it was incredible. And then, like I've already said in the show, running 35 yards after it to set up that next score, because it was only 10-7 at that point. And so that puts them up 17-7. That leads to that Goff to St. Brown touchdown. And so I'm going to give a lot of props to DJ Reed on that one. That was my play of the game.
Good call.
So, all right. Well, major storylines, anything we haven't talked about, anything else, I guess, final thoughts as we get ready to get out of here, guys. Coach, anything you saw, heard, anything that happened today at the game, anything, last comments?
No, just it was the crowd was great throughout as usual. Had a great day. Got to spend some time with 3 of the parents of players, which was just totally awesome. At a tailgate, just talking to those guys. And I'm gonna tell you, it was Campbell's parents, and it was Laporta's parents, and of course Nowaski's. And talk about parents that have kids that are young men playing at the highest level, probably going to be future All Pros. And you would think it was a Pop Warner football game talking to those guys. As grounded as their sons are. So that was a lot of fun, you guys. That was a good time.
Awesome, and great weather for it as well.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Guys, it was a short week, but I had to fill it with some football. And so, did you know that the Lions game last week against Baltimore was broadcast on 4 different stations? Mm-hmm. It was on ABC, ESPN, then you had the Manning cast on ESPN2, and then it was on ESPN Deportes as well. So I had to go back and watch the Manning cast. I caught that. I just had to hear all the comments, got to see Jeff Daniels sing. And, I mean, when a game's that good, you don't mind watching it multiple times. Mm. Also, I checked out ESPN Deportes for a little bit, and I got to give a shout-out to Javier, because he is the only person on ESPN that I have found that actually took the Lions to win that game beforehand. So good on him for doing that. So I wanted to share that out. And James, did you know somebody ran the stumble bum today? Did you hear about that?
No. I heard about that.
Yeah. Ben Johnson called the stumble bum for Chicago today, and it didn't work. It was an incomplete pass.
Bummer.
It only works against Chicago. The Packers did it, and the Lions did it against Chicago.
Not for Chicago.
There you go. James, did you have any final thoughts before we get out of here? Any last things to share?
No, I was watching the game with some friends, with a family of friends, and we all jointly took credit for the missed field goal by the Browns, because we were giving them some bad juju going into that. So there was some celebrating when that one slid a little bit to the left.
Yeah. You hold the fan up to the TV or something like that?
No, we were just all doing the
Sir Shanks a lot. Sir Shanks a lot. There you go.
Awesome. All right, Coach, James, thank you guys both for all your insights, comments, and just general commentary.
All good.
Folks, thank you for tuning in. We want to say thank you to Roaster Jack Coffee as well. Remember, they're roasting incredible beans since 1999. Visit roasterjack.com. Use the code LIONS. You'll get 20% off that next order. And remember, we got some primetime games coming up, so you might want to stock up. Find us on social media like Twitter and Instagram. You can find us on YouTube for the video version of the podcast. We'd love to hear your thoughts and reviews. You can check out more episodes and content at notthesameoldlions.com. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.